The crisis came 6 weeks after Marcus had begun his consulting work, triggered by an event that no one could have predicted. Chief Engineer Rodriguez had been pushing for expanded alien technology integration, and Marcus had been carefully selecting artifacts that could demonstrate beneficial applications without revealing their true significance. What he hadn't anticipated was that Director Harrison had been conducting his own investigation into the archaeological sites. Marcus discovered the problem when he arrived at the facility to find security teams surrounding the artifact storage hangar. Harrison stood near the entrance, his expression grim as he reviewed data on a portable terminal. When he spotted Marcus approaching with Kess, his face hardened into something approaching anger. "Mr. Chen," Harrison called out, "your presence is required immediately. We've discovered some interesting correlations in our archaeological data that require your expertise." The tone was carefully neutral, but Marcus could see the security personnel positioning themselves to block potential escape routes. Whatever Harrison had found, it had convinced him that Marcus posed a significantly greater threat than a simple consulting mechanic. Inside the hangar, Marcus found himself looking at a display that made his blood run cold. Harrison had somehow obtained copies of his grandfather's complete research files, including the detailed surveys of alien installations that documented their archaeological significance. Worse, he had cross-referenced the data with recent mining reports to create a comprehensive map of destruction. "Your grandfather was quite thorough in his documentation," Harrison said, activating the holographic display. 47 major archaeological sites, each one containing artifacts of potentially immense historical value. 31 of those sites have been completely dismantled by mining operations over the past 18 months. Marcus forced himself to look surprised rather than horrified. "I don't understand the significance. Aren't these just mineral extraction sites with some unusual geological formations?" Harrison's smile was predatory. "Geological formations don't typically contain manufactured devices with internal power sources, Mr. Chen, nor do they usually respond to bioelectric stimulation from alien animals with apparent technological interface capabilities." The display shifted to show surveillance footage from the processing facility, focusing on Kess's interactions with the memory core. The recordings had been enhanced to show details that weren't visible to casual observation. The complex light patterns, the harmonic resonances, the subtle data transfers that Marcus had thought were undetectable. "Your animal isn't just interfacing with alien technology," Harrison continued. "She's downloading information from devices that our xenoarchaeology consultants have identified as data storage systems. The question is what she's doing with that information, and whether you're aware of her activities." Kess stood beside Marcus, her patterns carefully controlled to suggest normal stress responses rather than the tactical assessment he knew she was conducting. Security personnel surrounded them, but their position suggested they were prepared for flight rather than fight. They didn't understand what they were really dealing with. "Director," Marcus said carefully, "I think you're overestimating both my knowledge and Kess's capabilities. She's attracted to certain electromagnetic frequencies, but that doesn't mean she understands the technology that produces them." Harrison activated another display, this one showing energy readings from various alien artifacts during Kess's interactions with them. The data clearly indicated sophisticated information transfer protocols that exceeded anything human technology could achieve with organic interfaces. "Mr. Chen, I've been in colonial administration for 15 years. I've learned to recognize when someone is attempting to manipulate resource allocation for personal gain. Your grandfather's research, your convenient appearance, your animal's remarkable abilities, the pattern, suggests a coordinated effort to exploit discoveries that rightfully belong to the Colonial Mining Consortium." Marcus realized that Harrison had constructed a narrative that explained the available evidence while completely missing the actual truth. The director believed they were dealing with industrial espionage rather than archaeological preservation, which meant he was prepared to handle the situation with standard corporate security protocols. "What exactly are you suggesting?" Marcus asked. "I'm suggesting that you and your animal have been stealing proprietary data from artifacts that could revolutionize human technology," Harrison replied. "Information that could be worth billions of credits on the black market for alien technology." The accusation was so far from the truth that Marcus almost laughed. Harrison thought they were stealing secrets to sell, when they were actually trying to save knowledge from being destroyed. But the misunderstanding might also represent an opportunity. Director, Marcus said, if you believe we've been stealing valuable data, then you must also believe that data has significant commercial value, which raises an interesting question. If these artifacts contain technology worth billions of credits, why are they being processed as mineral deposits rather than being studied as technological resources? Harrison's expression shifted as he considered the implications. Marcus could see him calculating the potential profits from properly exploiting alien technology versus the current mining operations, simple material extraction. The analysis costs would be prohibitive, Harrison said finally. Colonial mining consortiums don't have the resources for comprehensive xenoarchaeological research. But we do, Marcus replied. Kess can interface with alien technology in ways that would cost millions of credits to replicate with conventional analysis equipment. Instead of treating her as a security threat, you could be using her capabilities to unlock the commercial potential of artifacts that you're currently destroying. It was a desperate gambit, but Marcus could see it having an effect. Harrison was first and foremost a businessman, and the possibility of revolutionizing the mining operation's profitability was difficult to ignore. Kess chose that moment to approach one of the nearby artifacts, a device that looked like crystallized music. When she touched it, the entire hangar filled with harmonious sounds that seemed to resonate with the fundamental frequency of human neural activity. Every person present felt an immediate sense of calm and well-being, a demonstration of technology that could have applications in medicine, psychology, and entertainment. What did she just do? Harrison asked, his voice carrying a note of wonder rather than suspicion. She activated a mood regulation device, Marcus replied, improvising based on the artifact's obvious effects, technology that could revolutionize treatment for depression, anxiety, and stress-related disorders. The medical applications alone could be worth more than the entire mining operation. Harrison was quiet for several moments, studying the artifact and the obvious changes in his security personnel's demeanor. Marcus could see him running calculations, weighing the potential benefits of technological exploitation against the risks of departing from standard mining protocols. Mr. Chen, Harrison said finally, I'm prepared to offer you a different kind of contract. Senior consultant for alien technology integration, with full access to archaeological sites and artifacts. Your compensation would be tied to the commercial value of discoveries rather than standard consulting fees. Marcus felt a surge of hope. If he could gain official access to the archaeological sites, he might be able to preserve the most important artifacts while satisfying Harrison's commercial interests. It wouldn't save everything, but it might be enough to fulfill his grandfather's mission. I accept, Marcus said, but I'll need guarantees that valuable artifacts won't be destroyed by industrial processing before they can be properly analyzed. Agreed, Harrison replied. Effective immediately, all archaeological materials will be routed through your analysis protocols before any integration or processing decisions are made. As the security teams dispersed and Harrison began making arrangements for Marcus's expanded access, Kess's patterns shifted to colors that suggested cautious optimism. They had bought time, gained access, and created a framework for preservation that might actually succeed. Marcus's inheritance had evolved from a simple pet transfer to a consulting position to something approaching a rescue mission for an entire civilization's legacy. But for the first time since arriving on Kepler 442b, he felt like they might actually accomplish what his grandfather had died trying to achieve. The poor human mechanic's only inheritance had indeed been a bad-tempered alien wolf. But years later, that inheritance was about to change the course of human development in ways that no one could have imagined. Sometimes the most valuable gifts come in the most unexpected packages, and sometimes saving the future requires convincing people that profit and preservation can be the same thing. 3 weeks into his consulting work, Marcus had established himself as an invaluable asset to the mining operation, while secretly documenting the most significant alien artifacts before they could be destroyed. His days followed a careful routine. Mornings spent solving legitimate engineering problems, afternoons conducting efficiency analysis that allowed him and Kess to interface with recovered artifacts, and evenings compiling data that painted a picture of a civilization far more advanced than anyone realized. The breakthrough came when Rodriguez granted him access to the main artifact storage facility. a converted cargo hangar where hundreds of alien devices waited for integration into human systems. Walking through the warehouse with Kes was like touring a museum of wonders that no human eye was meant to see. Navigation instruments that could plot courses through dimensions humanity hadn't discovered. Computational devices that processed information using quantum principles that exceeded Earth's theoretical understanding. And artistic creations that somehow incorporated mathematical concepts into aesthetic expressions. Kes moved through the storage facility like someone returning home after a long absence. Her patterns shifted constantly as she identified different categories of artifacts, her 4 eyes tracking details that Marcus couldn't perceive. At several devices, she paused to establish the brief bioelectric connections that allowed her to access stored data, each interface adding to the vast archive of knowledge she was accumulating. "Your grandfather was right about the scope of this," she said. Marcus nearly dropped the scanner he was carrying. In 3 weeks of working together, Kes had never spoken directly to him. Her voice was musical, with harmonic undertones that suggested vocal cords designed for a much broader range of frequencies than human speech required. "You can talk," Marcus said, then immediately felt foolish for stating the obvious. "Communication has always been possible," Kes replied, her pattern shifting to what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. But demonstration of linguistic capabilities would have created complications with colonial administration. Talking animals attract different kinds of attention than intelligent pets. Marcus looked around the storage facility, confirming they were alone before continuing the conversation. "How much do you understand about what's happening here?" Kes approached a crystalline device that resembled a smaller version of the memory core in the processing facility. When she touched it, the crystal began emanating soft music that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "This was a child's learning toy," she said softly. "It contained the fundamental principles of mathematics, physics, and artistic expression that our children learned before they could walk properly. Your mining consortium has classified it as a potential weapons component because it generates complex electromagnetic fields." The casual mention of children hit Marcus harder than he had expected. The alien civilization hadn't been abstract entities. They had been people with families, children who played with educational toys that surpassed humanity's greatest technological achievements. "Where did your people go?" Marcus asked. "The archaeological surveys show the installations were abandoned, but there's no evidence of warfare or natural disaster." Kes's patterns shifted to colors that conveyed deep sadness. "We didn't abandon the installations. We transcended them. My people achieved technological and philosophical development that allowed us to exist beyond physical form. The installations were left as libraries, repositories of knowledge for younger civilizations that would eventually develop spaceflight capability." Marcus felt the weight of that revelation. The entire Kepler 442 system was essentially a gift, left behind by a civilization that had evolved beyond the need for physical existence. The mining consortium wasn't just destroying archaeological artifacts. They were dismantling a carefully preserved inheritance meant for humanity and other developing species. "But you're still here," Marcus pointed out. "Still physical." "Some of us chose to remain," Kes explained. "Guardians, watchers, guides for the species that would eventually find what we left behind. Your grandfather found me shortly after I began investigating why the installations were being destroyed rather than studied." The pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. His grandfather hadn't just stumbled upon alien artifacts. He had been contacted by one of the Guardians left behind to guide humanity's development. The research files, the careful documentation, the attempts to contact government officials. It had all been part of a desperate effort to fulfill the original purpose of the installations. "How many of you are left?" Marcus asked. "Few," Kes replied. "Most of my kind completed the transition centuries ago. Those who remained have been recruited by various governments and corporations who discovered our capabilities. I am perhaps the last Guardian operating independently." The implications were staggering. If other governments possessed Guardians like Kes, they would have access to technological principles that could revolutionize civilization or destroy it entirely. The mining consortium's crude exploitation of alien artifacts suddenly seemed like the least of humanity's problems. Marcus activated his data recorder, documenting everything Kes was telling him while she continued her survey of the stored artifacts. Each device she identified added to a growing catalog of wonders: medical instruments that could repair genetic damage, transportation systems that manipulated gravitational fields, communication devices that operated faster than light by using quantum entanglement principles. The knowledge contained in this facility could advance human civilization by thousands of years, Marcus said, watching Kess interface with what appeared to be a star map that showed galaxies beyond the Milky Way. It was intended to, Kess agreed, but only when humanity demonstrated the wisdom to use such knowledge responsibly. The current approach suggests your species is not yet ready for unrestricted access to our legacy. Marcus found himself looking at the situation from an entirely new perspective. The mining consortium wasn't just failing to recognize the value of what they were destroying. They were actively proving that humanity wasn't mature enough to inherit the gifts that had been left for them. What can we do? Marcus asked. How do we stop this destruction and preserve what's left? Kess moved to a device that looked like a sculpture made of flowing metal, her touch causing it to reshape itself into new configurations. Your grandfather believed the answer lay in proper documentation and gradual education. Show humanity what they are destroying. Help them understand the true value of what they have found. Guide them toward more responsible stewardship. But that could take years, Marcus protested. By then, most of the installations will be completely dismantled. Then we must work faster, Kess replied. Or find a way to demonstrate the consequences of continued destruction in terms that even colonial administrators can understand. Marcus was beginning to understand why his grandfather had spent his final years in desperate research. The scope of what needed to be preserved was overwhelming. The timeline for action was impossibly short, and the consequences of failure extended far beyond a single mining operation. Humanity was being tested, and they were failing the examination without even realizing they were taking it. But perhaps that was about to change. With Kess as his guide and his grandfather's research as a foundation, Marcus might be able to accomplish what the old man had died trying to achieve. The question was whether he could do it before Director Harrison decided that the security risks outweighed the operational benefits of having an alien guardian working in their facility. Time was running out. But for the first time since inheriting his grandfather's mission, Marcus felt like he had a real chance of success. Felt stress from its forced integration into human systems. Hairline fractures that suggested it wouldn't survive much longer under current operating conditions. As they walked back through the facility, Marcus began formulating a plan that balanced his need to preserve alien knowledge with the practical requirements of maintaining his cover as a consulting mechanic. He would need to work quickly, documenting as much as possible while gradually convincing the mining consortium that their current approach was both inefficient and dangerous. The real challenge would be finding a way to save the most important artifacts without revealing that he knew their true significance. Because if Director Harrison suspected that Marcus understood the archaeological value of what was being destroyed, both he and Kess would find themselves on the next transport ship away from Kepler 442b, leaving the ancient civilization's legacy to be ground into industrial raw materials. Rodriguez was already making plans for expanded alien technology integration, seeing Marcus and Kess as the solution to months of technical problems. She had no idea that she was actually facilitating the preservation of knowledge that could revolutionize human understanding of the universe. Sometimes, Marcus reflected, the best way to save something was to convince people that destroying it more efficiently served their own interests. The irony wasn't lost on him. His grandfather had tried to preserve alien artifacts through official channels and had been ignored. Marcus was going to save them by helping the mining consortium exploit them more effectively, at least until he could figure out a permanent solution. Kess seemed to approve of the strategy. Her patterns had shifted to colors that suggested anticipation mixed with determination. She had work to do, knowledge to preserve, and a human partner who was finally beginning to understand the true scope of what they had inherited together. Chief Engineer Rodriguez led Marcus through the mining facility's maintenance bays, with the enthusiasm of someone who had finally found hope after months of technical disasters. The scale of the operation was impressive. Massive extraction systems, processing plants that could handle entire asteroid fragments, and transportation networks that moved millions of tons of raw materials daily. It was also, Marcus quickly realized, a mechanical nightmare held together by improvisation and prayer. The real problem started about 8 months ago, Rodriguez explained as they walked past a malfunctioning ore processor that was producing an ominous grinding sound. We started hitting mineral deposits with unusual electromagnetic properties. Standard equipment couldn't handle the interference patterns, so we began integrating salvaged alien technology to compensate. Marcus stopped in front of the failing processor, studying the cobbled-together hybrid of human engineering and alien components. Kes moved closer to the machine, her fur beginning to glow as she apparently sensed the electromagnetic disturbances that were causing the malfunction. The alien components came from where? Marcus asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Archaeological sites throughout the asteroid belt, Rodriguez replied. Technically, we're supposed to catalog and preserve artifacts of potential historical significance, but corporate directives prioritize operational efficiency. If we find something that can solve an engineering problem, we're authorized to adapt it for industrial use. Marcus felt his jaw clench as he realized the scope of the destruction his grandfather had been trying to prevent. Ancient alien technology was being stripped from archaeological sites and jury-rigged into mining equipment, with no understanding of its original purpose or cultural significance. It was like using the Mona Lisa as a paint-mixing palette. The integration protocols are completely inconsistent, Rodriguez continued, oblivious to Marcus's growing anger. Some alien components interface perfectly with our systems. Others cause cascade failures that shut down entire production lines. We've had 3 major accidents in the past month alone. Kes had positioned herself near the processor's control panel, her 4 eyes studying the jury-rigged connections with obvious distress. Marcus could see her patterns shifting through colors that suggested both sadness and rage. The alien technology wasn't just being misused. It was being forced to function in ways that violated its fundamental design principles. Show me the worst integration problems, Marcus said, the ones that have caused the most serious failures. Rodriguez led them deeper into the facility, past fusion cutting arrays that sparked with uncontrolled energy discharges and transport systems that moved with jerky, unpredictable motions. Each piece of equipment told the same story, alien technology forced into compatibility with human systems through brute force engineering that ignored the elegant principles underlying the original designs. The tour culminated in the facility's central processing chamber, where a massive alien artifact had been integrated into the primary mineral separation system. The artifact itself was beautiful, a crystalline structure that pulsed with internal light, its faceted surfaces creating prismatic displays that shifted through the visible spectrum. It had been surrounded by crude mechanical interfaces, metal brackets and power couplings that scarred its surface like industrial shackles. "This is our primary processing core," Rodriguez said with obvious pride. "We found it in one of the larger archaeological sites. Took our team 6 weeks to extract and transport, but the efficiency improvements have been incredible. We can process rare earth elements at 3 times the normal rate." Marcus stared at the artifact, recognizing it from his grandfather's research files. It wasn't a processing device at all. It was a memory core, a crystalline library that contained thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. The mining operation was using it as a sophisticated filter, forcing it to separate mineral compounds while the vast databases it contained were completely ignored. Kes approached the artifact slowly, her luminescent pattern shifting to match the colors emanating from the crystal. When she placed a paw against one of the exposed surfaces, the entire structure began resonating with harmonic frequencies that made the air itself seem to vibrate. For a moment, Marcus could swear he heard something that might have been music, or perhaps the echo of voices from a civilization that had vanished millennia ago. "Fascinating," Rodriguez breathed. "Your animal seems to have some kind of natural affinity for the alien technology. We've never seen the artifact respond like that to organic contact." Marcus realized he was looking at an opportunity that might not come again. If he could demonstrate that Kes possessed unique abilities to interface with alien technology, he might be able to convince the mining consortium to value her as a resource rather than a security threat. More importantly, he might be able to gain access to other archaeological sites before their contents were destroyed by industrial processes. "Kes has been exposed to alien technology since she was young," Marcus said carefully. "My grandfather believed her species might have originated from the same region of space where these artifacts were created. She seems able to understand their operational principles in ways that our conventional analysis can't match. Rodriguez's eyes lit up with possibilities. Could she help us solve the integration problems? Some of the artifacts we've found are completely non-responsive to human interface attempts. If your animal could activate them, we might be able to increase operational efficiency by orders of magnitude. Marcus felt Kess's attention focus on him, her four eyes conveying a complex message he was beginning to understand. She was willing to demonstrate her abilities, but only if it served the larger purpose of preserving her people's legacy. The memory core in front of them wasn't just a mining tool, it was a repository of knowledge that could teach humanity things they wouldn't discover on their own for centuries. I think she could help, Marcus said finally. But working with alien technology this advanced requires careful procedures. The artifacts weren't designed for crude mechanical integration. They respond to bioelectric interfaces, harmonic resonance patterns, things that require a more sophisticated approach than bolting them onto mining equipment. Rodriguez nodded eagerly, already envisioning the productivity improvements that proper alien technology integration could provide. What would you need to develop better interface protocols? Marcus looked around the processing chamber, noting the locations of security cameras and monitoring equipment. Whatever he proposed would need to sound like legitimate engineering work, while actually serving his real purpose of documenting and preserving the alien artifacts before they were completely destroyed. First, I'd need detailed surveys of all the archaeological sites where artifacts have been recovered, Marcus said. Understanding the original context might help us determine optimal integration approaches. Second, I'd need access to the artifacts themselves for comprehensive analysis. Some of them might be damaged by current interface methods. That could be arranged, Rodriguez replied. We maintain detailed survey records for insurance purposes, and most of the recovered artifacts are stored in our research facility pending integration projects. Marcus felt a surge of hope. If he could gain access to the survey records and artifact storage, he might be able to identify the most significant pieces before they were permanently altered by industrial modification. More importantly, he could document everything for potential future preservation efforts. There's one more thing, Marcus added. Kess seems to interface best with alien technology when she's not under stress. The current security restrictions and containment threats are making her nervous, which could affect her ability to demonstrate her capabilities. Rodriguez glanced at Kess, who was still maintaining contact with the memory core, her bioluminescent patterns creating a light show that synchronized with the artifact's internal illumination. The display was genuinely beautiful, and it was having a visible effect on the crystalline structure's operational stability. I'll speak with Director Harrison about modifying the security protocols, Rodriguez said. If your animal can help us unlock the potential of these artifacts, she's worth more to the colony as an active consultant than as a containment problem. As they prepared to leave the processing chamber, Marcus noticed that Kess had managed to establish a deeper connection with the memory core. The artifact's light patterns had become more complex, cycling through sequences that looked almost like written language. For just a moment, he caught a glimpse of something that might have been star charts, technical schematics or historical records scrolling through the crystal structure at superhuman speeds. Kess was downloading information from the memory core, copying vast databases of knowledge into whatever biological storage systems her species possessed. The mining consortium thought they were using the artifact as a processing tool, but Kess was treating it as the library it had originally been designed to be. When she finally stepped away from the artifact, her luminescent patterns had shifted to something that looked like satisfaction, mixed with urgency. She had found what she was looking for, but time was running short. The memory core showed signs of structural stress from its... Marcus arrived at the administrative complex with Kess walking calmly beside him, though he had spent the better part of an hour convincing her to wear the specialized restraint harness his grandfather had designed. To outside observers, she looked like an exotic but well-trained companion animal. Only Marcus could see the subtle signs of her true nature, the way her eyes independently tracked multiple potential threats, the slight luminescence of her fur in response to the complex electromagnetic fields of the building's security systems. Director Harrison's office occupied the top floor of the complex, its windows offering a panoramic view of the mining operations that scarred the planet's surface. The man himself was exactly what Marcus had expected from colonial administration, middle-aged, career bureaucrat written across every line of his face. The kind of person who saw problems as paperwork to be processed rather than puzzles to be solved. Mr. Chen, Harrison began without preamble, I trust you understand the unusual circumstances surrounding your inheritance. Your grandfather was a valued member of our mining community, but his final years were marked by certain eccentricities that have created complications for colonial security. Marcus settled into the offered chair, keeping his expression carefully neutral while Kes positioned herself where she could observe the entire room. I'm not sure I understand. The legal documents indicated a simple transfer of personal property. Harrison activated a wall display that showed surveillance footage from various locations around the colony. Marcus recognized his grandfather's distinctive gait in several clips, but what caught his attention was the consistent presence of Kes in each recording. More interesting was the way she seemed to anticipate surveillance coverage, consistently positioning herself to avoid clear documentation of her more unusual characteristics. Your grandfather's pet demonstrated behaviors that our xenobiology consultants found difficult to classify, Harrison continued. Intelligence levels that exceeded baseline parameters for known species, apparent technological interfaces that shouldn't be possible for organic entities, and most concerning, evidence of unauthorized access to restricted mining data. The last statement was delivered with the casual tone of someone revealing a card they believed to be decisive. Marcus forced himself to look surprised rather than impressed by his grandfather's operational security. I don't understand how an animal could access mining data, Marcus said. Kes seems intelligent, but she's still basically a pet. Maybe your security systems need updating. Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. An interesting suggestion. Our systems are updated monthly by certified technicians from the Terran Defense Consortium. Yet somehow your grandfather obtained classified survey reports, shipping manifests and excavation schedules that should have been impossible for a mining engineer to access. The wall display shifted to show excerpts from his grandfather's research files, though Marcus noticed they appeared to be heavily redacted copies that omitted the most sensitive xenoarchaeological findings. Someone in colonial administration knew about the alien installations, but they seemed to believe the research was motivated by simple industrial espionage rather than archaeological preservation. Director, Marcus said carefully, if you're suggesting my grandfather was involved in corporate espionage, I think you're overestimating both his technical abilities and his motivations. He was a mining engineer, not a data thief. Perhaps, Harrison replied, but we need to ensure that his research interests don't continue under new management. Colonial regulations require comprehensive psychological evaluation for any resident maintaining exotic fauna. The evaluation process typically takes several weeks and requires temporary surrender of the animal for specialized containment. Marcus felt Kes tense beside him, her bioluminescent patterns shifting to colors that suggested agitation. The restraint harness suddenly seemed less like a disguise and more like a genuine necessity. If Kes decided that Harrison represented a threat to their mission, the director's office might become a crime scene very quickly. I'm willing to comply with regulations, Marcus said, placing a calming hand on Kes's head. But I'm curious about the specialized containment. What kind of facilities do you have for exotic animals? Harrison's expression brightened, apparently interpreting Marcus's question as cooperation rather than reconnaissance. We've constructed a temporary holding facility using modified mining equipment, reinforced containment cells with advanced monitoring systems, staffed by personnel with experience in handling dangerous fauna. The description sent alarm bells ringing in Marcus's head. A holding facility built with mining equipment sounded less like animal control and more like an interrogation center. If colonial administration suspected Kes possessed unusual technological capabilities, they would want to study those abilities under controlled conditions. When would this evaluation need to take place? Marcus asked. Immediately, Harrison replied. Colonial security is prepared to escort you and your animal to the containment facility following this meeting. The psychological evaluation can begin this afternoon. Marcus's mind raced through options, none of them particularly appealing. Refusing the evaluation would confirm Harrison's suspicions about the inheritance, but submitting to it would likely result in Kes being subjected to testing that could reveal her true nature. Worse, if colonial administration was already aware of the alien installations, they might be planning to use Kes to access technologies they couldn't understand through conventional means. Director, Marcus said slowly, I appreciate your thoroughness, but I'm wondering if there might be an alternative approach. I'm a qualified mechanic with experience in alien technology integration. Maybe I could assist with some of your technical challenges while the evaluation procedures are being arranged? Harrison's eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of technical challenges? Marcus gestured toward the window overlooking the mining operations. I noticed some of your extraction equipment operating below optimal efficiency. Fusion cutting systems that aren't maintaining consistent beam coherence, transport vehicles with power distribution irregularities, basic maintenance issues that could significantly impact productivity. It was a calculated gamble. Every mining operation in the outer colonies struggled with equipment reliability, and Marcus's technical skills were documented in his colonial registration. If he could demonstrate value to the mining consortium, he might buy time to figure out how to preserve his grandfather's research while protecting Kess from whatever experiments Harrison had planned. Harrison studied him for several moments, apparently weighing the potential benefits of having a skilled mechanic available against the security concerns posed by the inheritance. Finally, he activated his desk communicator. Engineering supervisor to the director's office, he announced. Priority consultation required. Within minutes, a tired-looking woman in mining engineer coveralls entered the office. Chief Engineer Rodriguez looked like someone who had been fighting losing battles against malfunctioning equipment for years, and her expression brightened when Harrison explained Marcus's offer to assist with technical problems. We've got 17 major systems showing efficiency degrades, Rodriguez said immediately. The atmospheric processors alone are costing us 30% productivity loss. If you can actually fix alien tech integration issues, I'll personally recommend expedited residency approval. Marcus saw Harrison's expression shift as he calculated the economic implications of improved mining efficiency. Colonial administrators lived and died by productivity metrics, and the promise of significant operational improvements was difficult to ignore, regardless of security concerns. Very well, Harrison said finally. Mr. Chen will be granted provisional technical consultant status while the evaluation procedures are being finalized. However, the animal remains subject to immediate containment if any security incidents occur. Marcus nodded agreement, though he noticed Kess's luminescent patterns had shifted to something that resembled satisfaction. She understood more of the conversation than anyone else realized, and she approved of the strategy he had chosen. As they left Harrison's office, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he had just committed himself to a course of action that would either save an ancient civilization's legacy or get them both killed. Either way, his days as a struggling mechanic on Station Echo 7 were definitely over. Marcus spent the next 3 hours exploring his grandfather's hidden research, with Kess serving as an increasingly interactive guide. Every piece of equipment told a story of careful acquisition and modification, often in ways that pushed the technology far beyond its original specifications. The communication array alone represented more credits than Marcus had seen in his entire adult life, yet it had been disguised to look like standard mining equipment. The real revelation came when Kess led him to a sealed cabinet that required biometric authentication. When Marcus pressed his palm to the scanner, he discovered it had been programmed to recognize the family genetic markers. Inside, he found data cores containing terabytes of information, all meticulously organized and cross-referenced. Xenoarchaeological Survey, Kepler 442 System, read the first file header. Classification restricted. Principal investigator, Chen Wei-Ming. Research partner, Kess of the Void Runners. Marcus activated the primary research file, watching as three-dimensional star charts materialized in the air above the projector. The Kepler 442 system appeared in miniature, but this wasn't the simple mining operation the colonial authorities believed it to be. His grandfather had identified over 30 artificial structures scattered throughout the asteroid belt, each one showing signs of advanced construction techniques. We weren't the first ones here, Marcus muttered, studying the data. This whole system was already inhabited. Kess made a soft chuffing sound that might have been agreement. She moved to another control panel, and suddenly the holographic display zoomed in on one of the asteroid structures. What Marcus had initially taken for natural rock formations revealed itself as deliberately crafted architecture, flowing curves and geometric patterns that suggested both artistic sensibility and functional purpose. The research logs painted a picture of a civilization that had existed thousands of years before humans had achieved interstellar flight. The structures weren't ruins in any conventional sense. They were intact, powered, and apparently waiting for something. His grandfather's notes described energy signatures that defied current understanding of physics, materials that shouldn't exist according to known science, and most intriguingly, genetic markers that suggested the builders had been remarkably similar to the species Kess represented. "Your people built all this?" Marcus asked, gesturing at the holographic structures. "But where did they go?" Kess approached the display and placed a paw against one of the projected structures. The image responded to her touch, rotating to show internal layouts that his grandfather had somehow mapped during his covert expeditions. Vast chambers filled with dormant machinery, libraries containing information stored in crystalline matrices, and what appeared to be transportation systems that connected the various installations across the asteroid belt. The next data file made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Economic implications of xenoarchaeological discoveries contained his grandfather's analysis of what the alien technology could mean for human civilization. Single devices contained enough advanced engineering principles to revolutionize entire industries. The energy generation systems alone could make fossil fuels and even fusion power obsolete. The material science applications could transform everything from spacecraft construction to medical devices. But there was a problem. The Colonial Mining Consortium wasn't just extracting raw materials from Kepler 442b. They were systematically dismantling the alien installations, processing ancient artifacts as if they were simple mineral deposits. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge were being fed into industrial recyclers, broken down into component elements for shipment to manufacturing centers. They don't know what they're destroying, Marcus realized, scrolling through shipping manifests his grandfather had somehow obtained. These mining operations aren't just strip mining the planet. They're erasing evidence of an entire civilization. Kess's response was a low growl that raised the hair on Marcus's arms. Her bioluminescent patterns began shifting through colors he had no names for, and her 4 eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. For the first time since meeting her, Marcus genuinely understood why the colony security forces had been afraid to enter the apartment. The final section of his grandfather's research contained correspondence with contacts throughout the human colonies, scientists and government officials who might have been sympathetic to preserving the alien artifacts. But every message in the sent folder had been marked as transmission failed or recipient unresponsive. His grandfather had tried to alert the authorities about the archaeological significance of the site, but no one had been willing to listen to an aging mining engineer with wild theories about ancient aliens. Marcus found himself staring at a progress report dated just 1 week before his grandfather's death. The old man had been planning something ambitious, a comprehensive survey of the largest alien installation, one that mining operations hadn't reached yet. The expedition would have required specialized equipment and someone with sufficient technical knowledge to document the findings properly. Someone like a skilled mechanic who understood both human and alien technology. "He was training you for this, wasn't he?" Marcus said, looking at Kess. "All those years working together, learning to interface with human systems. He knew he might not live long enough to complete the research himself." Kess moved to a storage container Marcus hadn't noticed before, pawing at the latches until he opened it for her. Inside, he found environmental suits modified for both human and alien physiology, recording equipment, and what appeared to be translation devices designed to interface with the crystalline data storage systems his grandfather had discovered in the alien installations. The implications were staggering. Marcus had inherited more than just an alien companion. He had inherited a mission that could change the course of human understanding about the universe. But he had also inherited the responsibility of preserving knowledge that an entire mining consortium was unknowingly destroying. A soft chime from the apartment's communication system interrupted his racing thoughts. The main screen displayed an incoming message from Colony Administration, marked as urgent. When Marcus activated it, he found himself looking at the stern face of Director Harrison, the human administrator who oversaw mining operations for the entire system. "Mr. Chen," Harrison's recorded voice began, "your presence is required at the administrative complex within 2 hours for mandatory orientation regarding your inherited assets. Colonial regulations require all exotic animal owners to complete certification protocols before permanent residency permits can be issued. Failure to appear will result in immediate deportation and forfeiture of all inherited materials. The message ended with bureaucratic formality, but Marcus could read between the lines. Someone had noticed his grandfather's research, or at least suspected there was more to the inheritance than a simple pet transfer. The 48-hour deadline had been a trap, designed to flush out anyone who might be interested in whatever secrets the old man had been keeping. Kes was watching him intently, her 4 eyes tracking his expression as he processed the implications. In 2 hours, he would have to decide whether to play the role of a confused mechanic who had inherited an unusual pet, or reveal that he knew about the research that had consumed the last 3 years of his grandfather's life. Either choice would determine not just his own future, but potentially the fate of an entire lost civilization, whose legacy was being ground into industrial raw materials by people who had no idea what they were destroying. Marcus approached the door to Unit 47C with the same caution he would use around an unstable fusion reactor. The entry panel glowed red, indicating the security lockdown that had kept everyone out since his grandfather's death. When he pressed his newly registered biometrics to the scanner, the light shifted to amber, then green. The door mechanism began its unlocking sequence with a series of mechanical clicks that sounded unnaturally loud in the empty corridor. The moment the door cracked open, a wave of scent hit him. Not unpleasant, but completely alien. It reminded him of ozone and copper, with undertones of something wild that spoke to primitive parts of his human brain. A low rumble emanated from somewhere deeper in the apartment, a sound that vibrated through the floor and into his bones. Marcus pushed the door wider and stepped inside, his hand instinctively reaching for the emergency beacon on his belt. The apartment's main room was larger than he had expected, furnished with the standard issue furniture provided to long-term colony residents. What wasn't standard was the extensive modifications his grandfather had made. Reinforced wall panels, specialized ventilation systems, and what appeared to be scratch marks gouged deep into the metal flooring. In the center of the room, curled on a large cushion that had seen better years, lay the inheritance that had terrified an entire mining colony. The creature was unlike anything in Marcus's admittedly limited experience with alien fauna. Roughly the size of a large earth wolf, it possessed 6 legs arranged in a configuration that suggested both power and surprising grace. Its fur was a deep blue-black that seemed to absorb light, making it difficult to determine where the animal ended and the shadows began. Most striking were its eyes, not the simple paired organs of earth mammals, but 4 luminous amber orbs arranged in a diamond pattern across its skull. Those eyes were currently fixed on Marcus with an intelligence that was distinctly unsettling. The creature's head tilted slightly, studying him with the same intensity he was using to study it. For several heartbeats, neither human nor alien moved. Then the creature's lips pulled back, revealing teeth that could probably bite through the reinforced door behind him. "Easy there," Marcus said softly, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline surge flooding his system. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm Marcus. I think I'm supposed to take care of you now." The creature's rumbling grew louder, but there was something almost conversational about the sound. It rose from its cushion with fluid grace, each of its 6 legs moving in perfect coordination. Up close, Marcus could see the powerful musculature beneath the alien fur, the way its 4 eyes tracked his movement independently. This was a predator, he realized, but one that had chosen to be here. Moving with deliberate slowness, Marcus pulled the inheritance documents from his jacket and held them out. "See, legal transfer. I'm family, apparently. Distant family, but still family." One of the creature's ears, triangular appendages that could rotate independently, swiveled toward him. It took a single step forward, then another until it was close enough that Marcus could feel the warmth radiating from its body. Up close, he could see that its fur wasn't uniformly colored, but shot through with metallic threads that caught the apartment's lighting. The creature sniffed at the documents, its 4 nostrils flaring. Then, to Marcus's amazement, it looked directly at him and made a sound that was unmistakably disappointed. Not threatening, not angry, but disappointed, as if he had somehow failed to meet expectations. "Yeah, I know," Marcus found himself saying. "I'm not him. He's gone. But apparently I'm what you're stuck with now." The creature sat back on its haunches, regarding him with what could only be described as skepticism. Marcus looked around the apartment, noting the subtle signs of his grandfather's attempts to make the space comfortable for his unusual companion. specialized food dishes, exercise equipment that had been modified for six-legged anatomy, and sleeping areas that suggested the creature preferred elevated positions. A datapad on the kitchen counter caught his attention. When he activated it, he found himself looking at his grandfather's personal logs, recorded in the gruff voice he barely remembered from childhood visits. The most recent entry was dated just 2 days before the old man's death. Day 847 with Kess. His grandfather's voice emanated from the device. Still don't know what planet she originally came from, but she's adapted to station life better than most humans I know. Had another incident with the mining supervisors today. They want me to get rid of her. Claim she's a security risk. Idiots don't understand that she's probably the safest thing on this entire colony. If they could see what I've seen her do. Marcus looked back at the creature, Kess apparently, who was now watching him with obvious interest in the recording. Her ears had perked up at the sound of his grandfather's voice, and he could swear her expression had shifted to something resembling sadness. She's not from any of the known inhabited worlds. The recording continued. Whatever civilization bred her people, they were advanced enough to make the Zephyrians look like primitives. The way she understands technology, the way she can interface with systems that shouldn't be compatible with organic neural patterns. It's like having a living computer that thinks like a predator. The log entries went back nearly 3 years, documenting his grandfather's growing relationship with the alien creature. The early entries spoke of wariness and mutual respect, but the later recordings revealed something approaching genuine affection. More intriguingly, they detailed incidents where Kess had demonstrated abilities that shouldn't have been possible for any known organic life form. Day 623, another entry played. Kess fixed the atmospheric recycler today. Not assisted with the repair, fixed it. I watched her interface directly with the control system, her fur actually glowing where she touched the access panels. When I asked the station's engineering team about the repair later, they said the system was operating at 127% of designed efficiency. That should be impossible. Marcus set the datapad down and looked at Kess, who was now standing near the apartment's main computer terminal. As he watched, she placed one paw against the interface panel, and her fur began to glow with soft bioluminescence. The terminal's screens flickered to life, displaying system diagnostics that scrolled past faster than any human could read. "You're not just a pet, are you?" Marcus said, more to himself than to her. "You're something else entirely." Kess turned those 4 amber eyes toward him, and for a moment Marcus felt as though she was looking directly into his thoughts. Then she moved to a storage closet and began pawing at the door. When Marcus opened it, he found himself staring at equipment that hadn't been mentioned in any of the inheritance documents. Sophisticated scanning devices, data storage units with capacities that exceeded anything available on the civilian market, and what appeared to be a communication array powerful enough to reach ships in deep space. His grandfather hadn't just been a mining engineer. He had been researching something, and Kess had been his partner in that research. The question was whether Marcus was ready to inherit more than just a dangerous alien companion. Looking at the equipment, then back at Kess's expectant expression, he had the distinct feeling that his life had just become far more complicated than a simple inheritance transfer should allow.